that she wanted to do to help with the situation. And I talked to her and I said, sister, this is some remedies you can use and here's some herbs you can try. But I said, but here's the key thing. It is useless to jump to herbs and medicines of all sorts, whether it's in the pharmaceutical or natural world. It is useless to jump into these things if you're not following God's plan. God wants you to follow his plan. He wants you to stick to his laws of health. And as we stick to those laws of health, then we will see. Because I believe with all my heart, Adam and Eve kept it. And I'll show it to you. I'll prove it. So watch this. One of the great purposes of prophecy, where this kind of ties in here, we talked a lot about health, and I want to give you a quick little tidbit on prophecy that will help bring us right back to health. When we think about the great purpose of prophecy, John 14:29 says it clearly. And now I have told you before it comes to pass, so that when it comes to pass, what will happen? You might believe. So the great purpose of Jesus giving us prophecy, telling us things before they come to pass, is that we might what? Believe. Now, when it comes to disease, Jesus made a statement. A prophetic statement in relation to disease in the last days. Jesus was answering a question from the disciples. The disciples wanted to know, what are some of the signs that you're coming? And Jesus said it very simply. He said, and Jesus answered and said unto them, take heed that no man deceives you. He says, for nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. Now, what do we have highlighted here? Pestilences. Another word or another term for pestilences are diseases. Jesus said a sign of my soon coming is you're going to see diseases come. Now, it's not really the fact that diseases would exist, but he said in verse 8, which is not on the screen, he said all of these are the beginning of sorrows. The word sorrows in the Greek means birth pains. So literally, Jesus said the way you can know my soon coming is he says, pay attention to the events. What are the events? Right here, remember? These are the events. Nation, nation shall rise against nation. We're to look for that. Kingdom against kingdom, look for that. There shall be famines, look for that. Diseases, look for that. Earthquakes in diverse places. Jesus says, look for that. And he says, and when you watch its fulfillment, it will be fulfilled in the same manner that a woman goes through birth pains. Now, what are some facts, ladies, about when you go through birth pains? Typically, after the first contraction, your birth pains get more, number one, intense, and they get more rapid. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Mothers?
Yes.
Isn't that right?
Yes.
I mean, I need you. You're the fact. You're the facts. I can't. I've only observed. And I'm thankful for observation. But I prefer not that experience. You ladies are tough women. Listen. When you go through those birth pains, they get more intense and they get more rapid. So Jesus says, when you watch the fulfillment of prophecy, he says, watch how it gets fulfilled. Because it's going to get more intense and it's going to get more rapid. Now, you saw those statistics we talked about earlier? Do we see that they're getting more intense? More people are getting infected. More people are dying. And the diseases are growing faster. Do you know that we barely knew what an autoimmune disease was 20 years ago? I mean, you go back 20, 30 years. If somebody said autoimmune disease, we were kind of like, huh? What's that? We didn't even really think about it. We didn't even hear about it as much. We didn't hear about a lot of the diseases that we hear about today. I mean, literally, think about how rapid new diseases just keep unfolding. Jesus said this was going to be a sign. He wanted us to pay attention to it. Now, watch this. Today we have some famous names in health because Jesus told us in the last days, there's going to be a ton of diseases that's going to keep getting more intense and it's going to keep getting more rapid. And he says, and this is why I'm calling my people to get on God's plan because it's getting worse. It's not getting better. Now, there are some health leaders that kind of are zooming in on the key carrier of disease. We know disease is going to get more rapid, but who's going to be carrying it? Is it going to be airborne? Or is it going to be dietary? Is it going to be something else? Where's it really going to come from? So some of the thought leaders today, right? These are some of the big names worldwide. Some, this is not all. These are some of the big names worldwide who are really looking at disease from a causative standpoint and starting to make some pretty powerful statements. These guys' names is Craig McDougall. Then you got T. Colin Campbell. Then you have Caldwell Esselstyn. And then you have John McDougall. Okay? You can add names like Dr. Dean Ornish and some others. Really, really powerful people. They've written many books. You know, some of these books are things like right here. You can look at these books. The China Study, that was T. Colin Campbell. Then, of course, you got the Blue Zones. You got the Adventist Health Studies, a wonderful book called The Ministry of Healing. You got the Cancer Project. You have The End of Overeating. And then, of course, you got the super popular video, Forks Over Knives. All of these videos, all of these books, they're starting to really hone in on diet. And they're looking at the subject of diet on a level like it's never been studied before. And what's happening is they're finding out that the things that you and I eat, that we're putting in our bodies, can directly relate to the diseases that are plaguing our society right now. To the point that I thought it was very interesting that in the midst of putting all this together, do you know there's a book that exists that explains all of these things that the leaders have found out and everything else? Do you know that there's a book that showed clear as day that it was going to be the animal kingdom that was going to be the key carrier of disease? That book is called the Bible. This book is the best medical book in the market. And a lot of times people don't look at it like that. But I marvel because literally these books right here, the video Forks Over Knives, they ended up making a Forks Over Knives cookbook. And all that Forks Over Knives tell you is the danger of animal-based foods and the blessings of plant-based food. That's it. Literally, all these guys right here, all those guys, every single one of them have become famous, have sold millions of books, are traveling the world, simply letting people know animal-based food is dangerous and plant-based food is the best. And they're becoming big-time doctors and famous and everything. As you saw, all these videos and everything else are coming out there. But it's amazing because, again, the Bible said it before any of these books did. And the problem is we missed it. I'm going to show you what you missed. Take a look at this. Watch this. Here we go. Key carrier of disease in the last days. It was not merely that God showed us that disease was going to run rampant in the last days. God actually showed us what was going to be the key carrier. Notice. It was in a prophecy. Hosea chapter 3 and verse 5. It was a beautiful prophecy. It's the last verse of the book of Hosea 3. It says, afterwards shall the children of Israel return and seek the Lord their God and David their king, and shall fear the Lord and his goodness in the what days? In the latter days. Now, the first application of this was speaking about the Assyrian kingdom. But the second application of this was dealing in the last days, our time. And notice this. That was the last verse of Hosea 3. But watch chapter 4. It continues the thought. So in chapter 4, here's what it says next. Hear the word of the Lord, ye children of Israel. For the Lord hath a controversy with the inhabitants of the land. For there is no truth, nor mercy, nor knowledge of God in the land. Do we see that today? Yes. Do we see a lack of truth? Yes. Do we see a lack of mercy? Yes. Do we see a lack of the knowledge of God in the land? Yes. Yeah? Look at verse 2. How about this one? By swearing and lying and killing and stealing and committing adultery, they break out, and it seems like blood is just touching blood. Do we see this happening today? Yes. Do we see all of these things? So notice, as a result of the violation of God's law, right? Look at the first word in verse 3. Look at the first word right there. What's that first word? Therefore, right? Therefore. It says, therefore shall the land mourn. As a result of all these things, it says, therefore shall the land mourn, and everyone that dwelleth therein shall what? Languish. The word languish means to become enfeebled and diseased. What did the Bible prophesy in the, notice this, here we go, in the latter days? What did God prophesy in the last days would become enfeebled and diseased? It says, number one, with the, what's that term? With the beasts of the field. Not only that, with the fowls of the heavens. What else? With, yea, the fishes of the sea shall also be taken away. Do you know that we're living in this time right now? The beasts of the field, the fowls of the heavens and the fishes of the sea are being filled with sickness and disease. Filled with it. So what Caldwell Esselstyn and what T. Colin Campbell and John McDougall, what Forks Over Knives and the China said, what all these books are telling us, God already warned us.